Our webinar today is a spotlight on campus networks, infrastructure testing and maintenance. Thank you so much. And we're going to introduce ourselves. We are Trend Networks Academy, your trusted knowledge partner for all data network technicians and maintenance professionals. Our solutions provide proof of performance. We remove the guesswork when installing, maintaining commercial network systems. I hope you enjoy this webinar session. This is intended to help you with what you work on daily. That's networks. So in this session today, we're going to spotlight on campus networks, and because these networks are so large, we're going to just pick 4 areas to improve reliability, just four items that we can talk about and give you some fantastic solutions. So please join us, whether you're a Trend certified expert already or considering it. Let's get started. So the term campus or campus networks, believe it or not, is quite encompassing. They are a part of the fabric of our businesses around us. They encompass some of the latest technologies, from smart building interactive systems to data centers, processing, storing data, and energy saving efficiencies. Again, because of scale, these networks have a lot of different systems in them. So people working within these types of networks or complexes, so they can network operators can expect more data connections, increased testing, and certainly a trend now is the uptake of PoE, adding to complexity. Campus networks are complex, so they will require skilled technicians and a range of test equipment to manage the diversity. So if we think about what is this term campus networks, I'm referring to, let's just sort of break it down. A campus network is really a commercial network, but on a larger scale. The design connects multiple areas, multiple lands together, from large corporates, schools, airports, and government organisations. The design is essential for collaboration across different departments, joining people. You can imagine in a school, we need to join their resources together, or for government entities, we need to have centralized processing and applications. So just on screen, I've got a picture of a campus, I've got a picture of an office, and a picture of a hospital. The concept, we use those areas day in, day out. They are fundamental to countries, to buildings, to what we do. So campus networks are the core of what we do in our society. However, challenges appear with scale. Most campus networks have evolved over time and carry a mix of new and legacy systems. It's the sheer scale. The sheer scale makes it difficult to change out the cabling infrastructure. So again, today's session is spotlight on campus networks. We're going to highlight a couple of things, 4 individual items around cable infrastructure. I want you to think about the challenge with this large scale cable infrastructure is that you can change the network switches as switch speed or switches have evolved. The processes within a switch or network switch design has become faster and more compact. So that's kind of easy. They are able to go in and change out those switches, which is wonderful, but it's the sheer scale of that infrastructure, all that cabling in the walls and that building all around you. If you think about a railway station, is difficult to change. So innovations of network switches deliver faster speeds, but yet they're still having to deal with a challenge of legacy systems. So let's move on. So these are some of the challenges that we'll see with the network infrastructure. The second part is there's different people that work on campus networks. You can imagine we have someone that works with cabling, a cable technician, and you also have a network technician. And to introduce these types of devices these people require to do their job efficiently, they start with the basics, cabling verification. So again, if you're involved in this industry or you're working as a supplier or maintaining or as a project manager, a part of this, number one, we need a cable verification device. So that's absolutely critical. And typically a cabling person would turn up and say, can I install that cable, trace that cable, and put that in position? A second part is, and you might have heard this term before, is certification. Certification is a qualitative test that looks at the component to cable and across that link. So again, the same cabling technician typically would require a certifier or must have a link certified to make sure the cabling infrastructure operates at the optimum performance. So that's the cabling side, that's the infrastructure side. Let's introduce you to some other characters which are absolutely critical on this side as well. Network team. So the network team behaves slightly differently. They need a network verification tool, something that's going to talk the language of switch and connect into it. Okay. And lastly, within the network team is a performance team. So a crew which will look at the performance across that network for cybersecurity across to are my switches operating properly. And that's really, really important. So let's look at this. Let's move along to some of these challenges, what we can do as solutions, and how Trend Networks helps you solve these problems. So again, summarizing common challenges, the four that we'll look at today is number one, installation and maintenance teams vary and may not have a common approach to testing. Number two, because these guys are different, it's quite difficult. There's a cost. Costs are high to deploy testers. We simply can't give the same crew the same tester. So costs are difficult to separate a tester to a cabling group and a network team. 3 and 4, deploying new technologies, because we know campus networks are such sheer scale or evolve over time. Typically, we're going to deploy a new technology there. And lastly, number 4, what to do when you've got a mix of old and legacy cabling systems. Oh, well, you know, it's really, really tough. We've got to work with this. We can't just simply change it out. So what to do? Okay, so getting started. Challenge 1, we can solve it this way. So number 1, ensure you always have a standard whenever testing. One of the most important things is approach your site with a standards-based test. If you follow the standards and deploy testing across that, that would solve all of your infrastructure deployment problems. So we would always recommend a report, and most importantly, standards-based testing will have a site specification, is what I should refer to first, a site specification, and then have a report based on that standard. So the critical point here is you can have your site specification, have it based on a standard, but have a time-based proof of report against that. That's number 1. So ensure all your devices have reporting capability. Where you can bring efficiencies into project management and any kind of site management is have that centralized reporting capability. Look for products which are cloud enabled, where those reports, time-based reports, can be sent back seamlessly to a central location. We see a lot of challenges with campus sites where USB sticks are used, connections are used, and typically sooner or later they get lost. Maintenance teams change as shifts change, seem to lose that data at the end of the day. But by the use of a cloud system that can seamlessly connect the testing data, timestamp testing data, straight back to one repository, saves that time and removes the loss of data, and also removes the issues of cybersecurity or any kind of virus threats for USB sticks used on site. Okay, challenge 2 is about costs. The challenge we have is, remember, installation teams are different. We have a cabling guy, or we have a network guy. The cabling team is really focused on the infrastructure. But what we could do, and this is what Trend Networks did, is they looked and focused on a multi-function verification device. So I'd like to introduce you to a term, multifunction verification testers. Okay, multifunction will help us solve some of these issues with cost. So the installation team can do a wire map at the most. The most important thing is doing a wire map and making sure they can get those conductors in place and trace their cables. Number 2, when it becomes live, some of the cabling team may not be skilled with CDP and network architecture, but what they can do is do a fundamental speed test. In other words, they can connect the device live when it's live to the switch or live to a cabling system when the system is active, and at least check, do I have a switch speed? Can I see PoE? And more importantly, Trend's taken all those pains away by simply giving you a pass-fail. A pass-fail to power over Ethernet against an IEEE standard to ensure you've got enough power at that point. So I mentioned that PoE is a current technology important to all of us, being deployed across all sorts of sites, especially campus networks. It's bringing the functionality of being able to deploy data plus power to that point and to that end device. So this simple addition of a verification device plus performance testing for PoE is perfect. So a multifunction verification device helps utilize more skills out of your cabling team. And of course, they can still also use a tracing device there, as well as tracing cables or doing a switch hub link to trace a live network. So that's how we can help save costs, okay? Getting more of that team. When we deploy, challenge 3 was deploying new technologies. And if we think about, we were focusing on 4 challenges. The first challenge was that teams do different things. The second challenge was to deploying testers across these different teams is difficult. And this third challenge now is deploying newer technologies. So newer technologies really require certification. I mentioned right at the start, you should always use a standards-based test and ensure reporting against it. So I've got a certifier on screen, and I'm just going to talk about the Trend Network certifier. We would always recommend certification at all points. So verification devices are very useful for installing the cabling system, getting it in place, having your team being able to do first response, but please always certify. And the reason for that is it's the most comprehensive test to a standard that you can achieve for quality of the connector and the connected cable and the total link performance. So certifiers are actually analyzers that do the best performance test you can achieve to optimize your network performance. I've now just put on screen some of the tick boxes that a certifier must do. And the important thing there is it's looking at it as a qualitative test. So verifiers again are important, everybody needs one, but you must have a certifier for qualitative testing. And so what does it do? I've got on screen just a little arrow down to just people that are punching down these little wires, these twisted wires onto a block. So when they're putting these wires into these areas, these connectors, you can get those wires messed up, or you can get those wires poorly terminated, poorly punched down. This is what a certifier will discover. Also, another picture I've got on screen is a guy with a cable, and people love zip ties. They are important when used, but for data cabling, we always recommend using a hook and loop, a Velcro type connection, okay? Because sadly, zip ties, if over tightened, can put stress points along a cable, so try to avoid zip ties. Again, only a certifier, not a verifier, a certifier would pick that up. So that's certification, and that's why that's an absolute critical parameter, and I hope we've explained that well. Should you have any more questions on certifiers, please do chat with us. Challenge 4 is now looking at this legacy system. So I hope you enjoy this journey. We're on challenge 4, we're just wrapping it up, where we start talking about these 4 critical areas. So we're looking at the network side of things, and we're looking at legacy. So challenges 1, 2, and 3 were on the infrastructure side. 4 we start looking at what to do with legacy systems, because in some cases it's not that easy. So in comes our network team. So sites may have a mix of old and new. A lot of installation teams use their technicians utilize laptops. We totally understand that, because they are optimum professionals in what they do. But please be aware that laptops can only do so much. They can't measure PoE. They can't test fiber optics either. So let's look at some of the things why you would need a network verification tool. Okay, so number one, it really is to test for fiber optics and power over Ethernet. And there's other things we could do once we start doing that. So network verification, another tool is necessary. So we can capture all this data and put it in a report, but more importantly, measure PoE and be able to connect in and do a network check for what is connected. So on screen, I've just got kind of an overview, a snapshot of what network verification is. So it's looking for the devices and what devices are a part of that network. We use some of the protocols such as CDP, LLDP, and EDP, and we can do a network scan. So see, this is very, very different to certifiers. This device is looking at the network architecture and the protocols used to connect devices. So network teams need this. So once again, a different device, different purpose, but multifunction network verification is important because it can do copper, fiber, PoE, and reporting against a standard, an IEEE standard. So what would fiber look like? Here's an example of a fiber verification. We're just connected in here. And on screen, I've just brought up a little snapshot of discovering something in LLDP, and then there's some CDP. So the challenge here is that as legacy systems evolve, some devices may have different protocols and they do get matched together, and that's going to happen. And that's why you need a device that can do that. Okay, what we'd like to do is just introduce another very interesting concept. So thank you so much for joining us on this journey. I hope it's being helpful. A lot of the things we're talking about is what we see and what I've seen in many of the campus networks that I've met and talked to. And I've got on screen a concept that I'm going to share with you as a very important aid at the last part. It's network performance testing. I hope this helps us, and I hope this is very interesting. So amazing network architects and IT managers, they pretty much have a bunch of systems that they use to measure performance across their systems, and they're all extremely efficient and very, very professional. However, if we think about those systems, they're brilliant, but I would recommend to consider adding a load. So what I'd like to share is one of the concepts is adding a bidirectional load across a link, across a network, simply saying, okay, if we're going to do a performance test, how good is it? Let's put a load across a link. So Trend Networks has built an amazing device. It's an IEEE based tester, which can pretty much connect from one point to the other, pick a point, one to the other, straight through the network, and you can do a load test. 1 gig, 2.5, 5, or 10G, based on IEEE standards, point to point. So the important thing is this works with the IT management team for their performance matrix, the metrics that they're using. We can add this device after the installation is in place and do a commission test where we can run a test from one point to the other for 20 minutes, 1 hour, up to 72 hours as proof of reliability across that link. So we're looking at the bit error and we're looking at whether those packets are sent. So this would be absolutely imperative for emergency systems, for signaling systems, to make people aware, have we got at least 72 hours of uninterrupted performance? So what would that look like? I've just got on the screen, the second part is pretty much a switch. So I'm just showing a picture of a device connecting to a switch, and the blue line simulating pretty much a copper-based system, and you can have the device just looking at the horizontal network. So you could do that. However, you could go from then horizontal to fiber, so you could test the fiber backbone. So you could test through segments, adding load across those segments as you deploy them. So the idea is when you have a legacy system and when you're working with legacy systems, you may not be able to change out everything as you're adding to it. But what you could do, and where you cannot certify, this is an amazing tester that you could put across your total infrastructure and do a complete infrastructure test and look for packet error. And again, sharing the point on legacy systems, what would that look like? So where we cannot do a full certification, it is possible we could do SNR, signal to noise ratio, which would give you an idea of the ability for a link to carry a signal. And where we're able to do proper Ethernet testing, it is against an IEEE standard. So I just got a couple of those standards on the screen here now. So this device, because it's a two-piece active tester, bidirectional, you're able to see a true test to IEEE. So thank you so much. So I hope that makes sense. I've just put in a couple of other images here on how amazing this device is. So I'd recommend any campus network truly consider having at least one of these devices available to them for the commission testing. So it can check patch cords, copper and fiber, a horizontal plane, Swisher pair, SFPs. It can load test your SFPs, 1 to 10 gig. And then lastly, it can test your infrastructure, okay? So again, back to where we were sharing the importance of this option is if we look at rail or network or legacy infrastructure, we see that rail has got a lot of coax still deployed in it. No matter where I've met some of the teams across the globe, there still seems to be a lot of legacy coax. And they typically use coax to IP systems. And this device is able to test across it. So it's just an example to help, to assist. And we have seen these devices deployed for extended reach. I've got an extended reach coax device here as an example. And so once again, I hope that just makes a lot of sense. So we're just going to show you on screen is an image of why this is different. So this is an active two-piece device, really amazing device that Trend Networks had built, Signal Telect 10G, doing a bandwidth test. And that's what we'll do, we'd send a packet from one end to the other. Okay, so again, thank you for joining us. We're just going to move on to start wrapping up. So the summary, that the 4 steps we looked at today was when managing large or campus network infrastructure, always ensure your site has a cable testing specification. We understand that teams will be operating differently because there's a cabling team or a network team. Make sure they follow the standards. Keep it up to date yearly, and note PoE is pretty much mandatory in some countries or becoming mandatory. Number 2, add test reports across all installation activities as proof of performance, and please do get your team trained for testing and certification. And the Trend Academy can help with that, so please do keep in contact with us and look for more. Number 3 and 4, ensure all connectivity is certified to address component, cable quality of testing, and of course DCRU. This is that PoE is included in your testing. Okay, add qualification. Sorry, I should just say lastly, add where you can, add qualification, add that transmission testing if you can to address performance. And now let us just answer some of those questions. So we're almost there. Okay, so Trend Networks, this is how we help. Our devices are multifunction cable troubleshooters. Look for PoE Pro if you can, that's a wonderful device. Our network verification devices have multiple functions. They always have timestamp reports. Our certifier addresses the component quality, cable performance qualities, and PoE in every test. And lastly, you've heard about the amazing Signal Telect 10G. Do think about that if you're operating a campus network. So all of these devices report back seamlessly to a cloud where you can store your data as well. So these are the products on screen. If you'd like to know more, please do join us, contact us. We're here to help. I really hope you enjoyed our webinar. Thank you so much for your time today. Any questions are very, very welcome. Please send them to our chat line. My name is Gordon White. Thank you for joining us, and please do join us again on the next webinar. Hi, I just had a question here. Is there any tutorial on how to use Navitec Pro available? Well, we're certainly working on that, not as yet. We have a slide deck, so it is possible. If you could please send me your email details, we can get a slide deck to help you out, but there will be a tutorial in future.